At my graduation, while I was on stage receiving my diploma, I looked into the crowd expecting to see my family cheering, only to notice my mother smiling at my sister who was wearing my cap and gown in photos taken earlier, making it clear who she truly favored, not some grand romantic gesture or a moment of passion. Just a text from my coworker Jessica saying drinks after work, with a winky face emoji. I stared at that message for 10 minutes in my car engine running, knowing Sarah was at home making dinner for us like she had every night for the past 3 years. Sarah. God, where do I even start with Sarah? She was everything I thought I wanted, but somehow convinced myself I deserved better than. We met in college, got engaged 2 years ago, and she'd been planning our wedding while working 2 jobs to help pay for my graduate school. She'd wake up at 5 a.m. to make me coffee before her morning shift, then come home and help me study for my thesis defense. But there I was staring at Jessica's text, and instead of driving home to the woman who loved me unconditionally, I typed back, sure. The first drink turned into 3. 3 turned into Jessica's hand on my knee. Her hand on my knee turned into me following her back to her apartment. I won't go into detail because honestly, they don't matter. What matters is that I weigh everything good in my life for 2 hours of feeling wanted by someone new. I told myself it was a mistake. One night, Sarah would never find out. I could live with the guilt. I was so wrong. The guilt ate me alive for weeks. I'd look at Sarah making breakfast and want to throw up. She'd kiss me goodbye and I'd feel like the worst person on earth. But I didn't confess. I convinced myself I was protecting her. Then Jessica started texting more. Had fun last night. Thinking about you. When can we do that again? I should have shut it down. Should have blocked her number and confessed everything to Sarah. Instead, I met up with her again. And again, each time telling myself it was the last time. Sarah started noticing I was distant. She'd ask if everything was okay, if I was stressed about graduation, if there was anything she could do to help. Her kindness made it worse. I'd snap at her over little things because I couldn't handle her being so perfect when I was being so terrible. 2 months into my affair, Sarah surprised me at work with lunch. I wasn't there because I was at Jessica's apartment. When I came back, my coworkers told me about the beautiful woman who'd waited for an hour with homemade sandwiches before finally leaving them at my desk with a note. The note said, "Thought you might be hungry. I love you. Can't wait to celebrate your graduation together." So I found out later she'd used her lunch break and bus fare to bring me food. Then had to walk home in the rain because she'd spent her last $5 on ingredients. That night she was extra affectionate. Kept saying how proud she was of me, how excited she was to see me walk across that stage, how she'd invited both our families to celebrate afterward. I almost told her then, almost. But graduation was only 2 weeks away and I was a coward. The day before graduation I tried to end it with Jessica. Told her I couldn't do this anymore, that I was getting married. She laughed and said she'd figured I'd come to my senses eventually. Then she showed me her phone, photos, videos, text messages, all the evidence of our affair, time-stamped and dated. Insurance policy, she said with a smile that made my freeze. Just in case wanted to ghost me. She wanted me to leave Sarah. Wanted me to choose her. Said if I didn't, she'd make sure Sarah knew everything. She'd post Ev to both our families. I begged her to give me time to think. She said I had until after graduation to decide. Graduation day came. I was a mess. Sarah had been up since dawn, pressing my shirt, making sure I had everything I needed. She kept taking pictures of me getting ready, saying she wanted to document everything. "I'm so proud of you," she kept saying. "You worked so hard for this." My family drove up from 3 states away. Sarah's parents took the day off work. Everyone was so excited, posting on social media about my big day. I felt sick. The ceremony started and I could see everyone in the crowd. Sarah in the front row with both our moms, holding a sign with my name on it. My dad with his phone out. Recordal brother giving me thumbs up. They called my name. I walked across that stage in a haze, shook the dean's hand, accepted my diploma. The crowd was cheering and I looked out to find my family. That's when I saw it. Sarah was crying happy tears, clapping so hard her hands must have. But next to her my mom was looking at her phone, smiling at something on the screen. She showed it to Sarah's mom, who gasped and covered her mouth. Even from the stage I could see Sarah's face change. The joy drained out of it like someone had pulled a plug. She looked confused, then devastated. My mom had received the photos. Jessica had followed through on her threat, but not in the way I expected. She hadn't posted them online or sent them to everyone. She'd sent them to my mother, knowing exactly how to cause maximum damage on the day that was supposed to be about my achievement. Sarah looked up at me on that stage, and I saw the exact moment her heart broke. Her face crumpled and she stood up and ran out of the auditorium, my diploma ceremony still happening around us. My mother just sat there, looking at her phone, not even watching as her son graduated. She was too busy looking at the evidence of how thoroughly I destroyed the best thing in my life. I finished the ceremony in a daze, took photos with classmates, pretended everything was normal. But inside I knew my life as I knew it was over. When I finally knew outside, Sarah was gone. So was her family. My mom handed me her phone without saying a word. There it was, everything. Jessica hadn't just sent photos. She'd sent screenshots of our text conversations, videos from her apartment. Even photos of me leaving work early to meet her. "How could you do this to that girl?" my mom asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "She loves you more than you deserve." I tried to call Sarah. Phone went straight to voicemail. I drove to her apartment but she wasn't there. All her stuff was gone. 3 years of building a life together, and she'd managed to pack it all up and disappear, and then it took me to graduate. She left one thing behind. Her engagement ring sitting on the kitchen counter next to a note that said, "I hope she was worth it." Sarah's note haunted me for weeks. 5 words that said everything about what I'd lost and nothing about what I'd gained. Because I hadn't gained anything. Jessica had vanished the moment she got what she wanted, which apparently wasn't me but just the satisfaction of destroying my relationship. I called Sarah every day for 2 weeks, left voicemails apologizing, begging for a chance to explain. Her phone was disconnected day 15. I drove by her work, but her manager said she'd requested a transfer to another location. I asked where, but they wouldn't tell me. My family was disgusted with me. My mom, who had adored Sarah and was already planning to give her my grandmother's wedding dress, couldn't even look at me. My dad, a man of few words, had plenty to say about honor and commitment and how I'd embarrassed the family name. "That girl treated you like a king." My mom said during one of our few conversations. She worked 2 jobs to support your dreams and you repaid her by sleeping with some from your office. My younger brother, who was supposed to be my best man, told me he didn't want to be associated with what I'd done. Sarah had been like a sister to him. She'd helped him with college applications, attended his baseball games when our parents couldn't make it, listened to him complain about girlfriends. She cried at every single one of my games when you weren't there. He told me. She cared more about our family than you did about her. The worst part was seeing how Sarah's leaving affected everyone else. My mom had been planning to teach her the family recipes. My dad had already started calling her daughter. Sarah's parents had welcomed me into their family completely. I'd spent every Christmas with them for 3 years. Now all of that was gone, and it was entirely my fault. I myself into work trying to distract myself from the constant guilt. But work was started, and now everyone there knew what I'd done. Jessica had apparently bragged about it to a few people before she decided to up my life. The story spread through the office like wildfire. People looked at me differently, the women especially. They'd seen how Sarah would bring me lunch, how she'd pickle it when my car was in the shop, how she'd attend the office Christmas party and charm everyone with her kindness. Now they knew I'd cheated on this perfect woman with a coworker. My reputation was shot. When a promotion opened up, I didn't even get an interview. My boss, who'd been a mentor, started giving me the bare minimum of interaction required for professional courtesy. 3 months after graduation I ran into Sarah's best friend Melissa, at the grocery store. She was someone who'd been friendly to me for years, who'd helped plan surprise parties for Sarah, who'd been excited about being a bridesmaid. She saw me coming and immediately turned to walk away. "Melissa, wait." I called after her. She stopped but didn't turn around. When she final expression was ice cold. "What do you want, Jake?" "Is Sarah okay?" Melissa laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You serious right now? You destroyed her and you want to know if she's okay?" "I know I messed up, I just messed up." Melissa's voice was getting louder, and other shoppers were starting to stare. "You didn't make choice. Every single day for months, you chose to lie to her. You chose to betray her. You chose to let her plan a future with someone who was already throwing it away." I tried to explain, to tell her how sorry I was, how much I regretted everything. She had to move back in with her parents. Melissa me off. She quit both her jobs because she couldn't handle the stress. She's in therapy. She can't eat, can't sleep, can't trust anyone. Her parents are worried she's gonna have a breakdown. Each word hit me like a physical. Sarah, who was the strongest part, knew was falling apart because of what I'd done. "She loved you more than she loved herself," Melissa continued. "She gave up her dreams to support yours. She worked herself to exhaustion to help pay for your school. And you it all away for what? Some excitement, some validation from a homewrecker. Please, can you just tell her I'm sorry?" "No." Melissa's voice was final. "You don't get to ease your guilt by sending messages through me. You made your choice. Live with it." She walked away, leaving me standing in the cereal aisle fighting back tears. That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove by Sarah's parents' house, just hoping to maybe see her car in the driveway. I didn't plan to stop or knock on the door. I just needed to know she was somewhere in the world existing. I parked across the street and sat there for an hour. Around 9 p.m. the front door opened, and Sarah's mom came out to get the mail. She saw my car immediately. Mrs. Chen had always been kind to me. She'd taught me to make her famous dumplings, always asked about my studies, sent me care packages during exam season. Now she looked at me with pure disappointment. She walked across the street to my car. I rolled down the window, hoping maybe she'd tell me Sarah was doing better, that there was hope for forgiveness. "You need to leave," she said quietly. "Sarah saw your car from upstairs. She's having a panic." "Mrs. Chen, I knew." She held up her hand. "That girl is broken, Jake. She can barely function. She flinches when men talk to her. She cries herself to sleep every night. And you sitting outside our house is making it worse." I could see a curtain twitch in an upstairs window. Sarah was up there, and she was afraid of me. The person who'd once felt safest in my arms was now terrified I might try to contact her. "Please," Mrs. Chen continued, her voice shaking with emotion. "If you ever loved her at all, leave her alone. Let her heal." I drove away, but not before I saw an ambulance pulling up to the house. Sarah's panic had gotten worse. The woman I'd claimed to love was being taken to the hospital because seeing my car had triggered her trauma response. The next day I found out through mutual friends that Sarah had attempted to take her own life that night. She'd been rushed to the hospital and was now on psychiatric hold. I caused that. My selfish choices, my betrayal, my showing up at her house when she'd made it clear she never wanted to see me again. I'd pushed the kindest person I'd ever known to the breaking point. I spent the next week calling the hospital, trying to get information about her condition. They wouldn't tell me anything. I wasn't family. I wasn't her emergency contact. I was nothing to her now except the source of her trauma. Jessica, who'd started this whole nightmare, had moved on completely. I heard she was dating someone new, Singaktim, another department. She acted like nothing had ever happened between us, like she hadn't deliberately destroyed 2 people's lives for sport. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't. This was my fault. I'd made the choice to cheat. I'd made the choice to continue the affair. I'd made the choice to lie and deceive and betray the person who'd loved me unconditionally. Jessica was terrible, but I was worse. She was a stranger who owed Sarah nothing. I was supposed to be Sarah's partner, her protector, her safe place in the world. Instead, I'd become the source of her nightmares. It's been 8 months since graduation day. 8 months since I destroyed the best thing in my life and nearly killed the person I claimed to love most. Sarah survived. That's the most important thing, and it's more than I deserve given what I put her through. I found out through Melissa's social media that she'd been released from the hospital after a week and was staying with her parents while she recovered. I haven't tried to contact her since that night outside her house. Mrs. Chen's words haunted me. "If you ever love at all, leave her alone." So I did. It was the first selfless thing I'd done in our entire relationship, but that doesn't mean I stopped thinking about her every single day. I started therapy after I heard about her hospitalization. Dr. Martinez is kind but doesn't let me off easy. She makes him in every choice I made, every lie I told myself, every moment I chose my own gratification over Sarah's well-being. "You didn't just cheat on Sarah. she told me during one session. You systematically deceive someone who trusted you completely. You let her plan a future that you were actively destroying. That's not just infidelity. That's emotional pot. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. I'd never thought of it that way, but she was right. While Sarah was picking out flowers for her with another woman. While she was working double shifts to help pay for my education, I was lying to her face every single day. I was an abuser. The fact that I never laid a hand on Sarah didn't matter. I'd systematically broken down her reality, made her question her instincts, gaslit her into thinking our relationship was perfect while I betrayed her behind her back. The therapy helped me understand what I'd done, but it didn't make living with it any easier. My career never recovered. Word had gotten around our industry about what happened. In a small professional community, that kind of reputation follows you. I ended up having to take a job in another city, starting out at a much lower salary. My family relationships were permanently damaged too. My mom still calls me on holidays, but the warmth is gone. She loved Sarah like a daughter and she can't forgive me for throwing that away. My brother barely speaks to me. My dad tries, but I can see the disappointment in his eyes every time he looks at me. They'd all lost Sarah too and they blamed me for it. Rightfully so. The loneliness was crushing. I'd never realized how much of my social life had revolved around Sarah and her friends. They'd all me off completely, which meant I was starting over socially professionally. I tried dating a few times, but it was a disaster. I'd compare everyone to Sarah, or I'd feel guilty for even trying to move on when I destroyed someone so completely. The few women who did go out with me more than once always asked about my last relationship. How do you tell someone you cheated on your fiancée with a coworker, drove her to attempt, and destroyed both your families in the process? You don't. You make up some story about growing apart or wanting different things. But the lies felt familiar and that scared me. I was already falling back into patterns of deception to avoid difficult conversations. Dr. Martinez helped me recognize this and I realized I might never be able to have a healthy relationship with anyone. 6 months after everything fell apart, I saw Sarah's engagement photos on social media. Not to me obviously. To someone else. Someone who looked the way I used to, before I took her love for granted and away. She looked radiant, healthy, happy. Her smile was genuine in a way it hadn't been with me toward the end when my guilt and distance had been everything between us. I should have been happy for her. She deserved love. Deserved someone who would treat her the way she treated me. But seeing her with another man was devastating in a way I hadn't expected. The man in the photos looked like everything I wasn't. He was older, more established, wearing a suit that thought pro I made in a month. But more than that, he was looking at Sarah like she was the most precious thing in the world. The way I should have looked at her. The comments on the photos were full of people celebrating her happiness, talking about how she deserved this after everything she'd been through. A few mutual friends who'd known us both had liked the photos. People who completely me out of their lives after what I'd done. I closed the app and didn't sleep for 3 days. A week later I got a call from Melissa. I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken since that encounter at the grocery store. But something made me pick up. Jake. Her voice was neutral. Hi Melissa. I'm calling because Sarah asked me to. She wanted you to know that she's engaged. I saw the photos. She also wanted you to know that she's doing well. She's happy. She's healthy. And she's moved on completely. I didn't know what to say to that. She wanted me to tell you that she forgives you, Melissa continued. Not for your sake, but for hers. She said holding on to anger was keeping her from being fully present in her new relationship. Sarah forgave me. The person I'd nearly destroyed had found the grace to forgive me and somehow that made me feel worse. She also wanted me to tell you never to contact her again. Ever. She's building a new life and you're not part of it. If you really are sorry for what you did to her, you'll respect that. I will. Melissa paused. Good. Melissa Porth. Jake, I hope you learned something from all this. I hope you never do this to another person. She hung up and I sat in my empty apartment, processing the fact that Sarah had found happiness despite what I'd done to her. She'd survived my betrayal, recovered the trauma I'd caused, and found someone who would love her the way she deserved. I was genuinely happy for her, but it also drove home how completely I'd lost her. She was thriving without me, which proved that everything good in our relationship had come from her, not me. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror and tried to figure out who I was if I wasn't Sarah's boyfriend, Sarah's fiancé, the guy who was lucky enough to be loved by Sarah Chen. I was just Jake. Just a guy who'd thrown away the best thing that ever happened to him for a few hours of excitement with someone who didn't even remember his name now. I was alone and I deserved to be. The hardest part about living with what I'd done wasn't the guilt or even the loneliness. It was the knowledge that I'd proven myself to be exactly the kind of person I'd always claimed to despise. I'd been the guy who cheats. The guy who lies. The guy who hurts innocent people for selfish reasons. The guy who takes love for granted and throws him on for garbage. I'd become someone I didn't recognize, and now I had to figure out how to live with him. Some nights I still dream about graduation day. But in my dreams I don't look out into the crowd to see my mother looking at her phone. Instead I see Sarah's face light up with pride and joy as I walk across the stage. I see her jumping up and down, crying happy tears, so excited to celebrate my achievement. Then I wake up, and I remember that version of that day never existed. The version that existed was the one where I broke the heart of the woman who loved me most, on what was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. I'm rating this as a warning, I guess, to anyone who thinks they can have it all, to anyone who thinks they deserve better than what they have. To anyone who thinks a moment of excitement is worth risking everything, it's not. I had someone who loved me unconditionally, who supported my dreams even when it meant sacrificing her own, who saw the best in me even when I couldn't see it myself. I that away for someone who saw me as a game to win and discarded me the moment she got bored. Now Sarah is planning a wedding with someone else, and I'm alone in a studio apartment in a city where nobody knows my name, writing cautionary tales on Reddit at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep through the guilt. She gets to be happy and I get to be a story she tells her therapist about overcoming trauma. Don't be me, don't do what I did. Because once you become the villain in someone's love story, that's all you'll ever be to them. No matter how much you wish you could go back and choose differently.